construction happens. We are evolving and changing. Construction doesn't always mean that the world comes to a stop. I think we've learned a lot of lessons from other towns, cities who have gone through this about parceling out the construction, how it works through the downtown in quadrants so that stores will be able to stay open. The signage will be improved, directing people to open stores and safe sidewalks to walk on and parking venues. So I'm not overly worried that the 2 years of when the road is torn up in different areas is going to be a death knell for our retail stores or for the life of the city.
Northampton for a long time. I've been in business in town for 15 years, and I know a lot of the other business owners, and everybody's, just making it. It's been a long time that people have been really eking by, and the issue is that foot traffic continues to fall off because online shopping is so readily available, especially post-pandemic. So the thing that we need is an atmosphere that brings people out, and I really think that it's going to create that. I think that the main upshot for my business is going to be just having people who want to spend time in our town. We definitely have seen a lot of people at my business who are coming from Belchertown, from Brattleboro, from Enfield, and everybody is always willing to come to Northampton because it's a great place to be. So they'll go out to dinner after, they'll, a couple will come and, get their treatments and then go out for a coffee or whatever. So having more people who are attracted to town and want to be here is just huge for us. And yeah, I'm just really excited to see Northampton jump into the 21st century with the Main Street redesign.
When you start designing a space with the human in mind, for too long we considered downtowns or streets really the domain of the automobile. But what I used to tell my students all the time is that if you design a building or a space that's at a person's scale, that means bricks and details that really relate to the human body, then you're going to invite more people. I mean, it sounds obvious, but that's the truth. And when you do that, then it's more equitable because you're thinking of people. So when we zoom out and look at some of the other benefits, whether it's the place where the bus is going to drop people off, there'll be more emphasis on the availability of public transportation for everybody. There's going to be stuff for people of all ages and all abilities. So a design that's human-based and not car-based is going to provide those amenities for humans.
So picture Main Street. I'm really excited about it, and I'm hopeful about it for a few different reasons. So one, as a wheelchair user, navigating the downtown is very, very, very difficult. Sometimes dangerous, treacherous, and I often don't come to the downtown independently because it is not very navigable in its current state. So I'm really excited for the disability community, anyone who uses any kind of mobility device, to have safer sidewalks. So that is, sidewalks along with crosswalks, right? So the sidewalks are going to be wider. They will be new, which means the cracks will disappear. The curb cuts will be new. Right now, some of the curb cuts, I can't go down them safely even with someone behind me holding me. They're so steep. And then crossing the street in a mobility device, being down low with the traffic, I don't do that, right? So I'm always with someone who is able-bodied, can be seen safely by the traffic. And so part of the redesign is shortening the crosswalk, so shortening the distance that we have to travel to get across the street. That the current length on Main Street is so long. Even as a driver, when I first moved here 4 years ago, I remember being shocked at how wide the crosswalk is, and so like how much concentration it takes to just drive through safely as a driver to make sure there are no pedestrians in this really long crosswalk. The redesign will make the downtown much more navigable for people who use mobility devices.
I've lived here in Northampton for 40 years. It was one of the best decisions I've made in my life to come here and set down some roots. The downtown really hasn't, the outside of the buildings, the streetscape really hasn't changed in 40 years, which is one of the blessings, I think, of the city, that it maintains its character. Unfortunately, underneath the streets and behind the buildings, there's a very tired infrastructure. Some of it that was created more than 140 years ago, 150 years ago after the Civil War. So part of Picture Main Street, we have the funding now to open up the artery, this main street, and improve the stormwater, the water delivery systems, the electrical lines, the communication lines, the gas lines, all of that stuff that feeds the downtown. It's a wonderful opportunity to do this.
You know, you look at Main Street, and for the most part, it hasn't changed. Over my lifetime, it looks almost the same. And you think about how the world has changed around us. And we really need to adapt to that change. You know, Northampton should not be the place that is stuck in time. And it really is. You know, under the road, we have all these pipes that need to be replaced. We have the stormwater system that it now needs to handle these massive downpours we have in the summer and even in the winter. We're in a changing world, and we really need to change our infrastructure to match the new reality. Not just with weather, but also with how people are going about with their business and how they're consuming. As e-commerce has risen, we're really required to rethink what a downtown is. It changes from a place where transactions are done quickly to a place where people want to spend time and experience their surroundings. And we really need to update Northampton's downtown to match that new reality.
Main Street will now no longer be primarily a street for cars. It's going to be, the design really creates a public space. And while many, American cities, the development of cities really had prioritized vehicles, we're going to take back the street, really. And it's going to be more balanced. So by making the street more narrow, by designing it from a more human, pedestrian-scaled perspective, we are putting in the kinds of things that will attract more people. So it'll be more lively. When you have wider sidewalks, when you have more trees, these are all the elements that we know people like. So the space will be used more. So it will really change completely the way Main Street is used. Main Street is so iconic. When people think about Northampton, they picture these row of buildings on Main Street. But now it'll be more vibrant and more vital. It's going to be a space that's used more. And especially post-pandemic, we need to find ways to revitalize Main Street, to bring more life to it. This is perfect timing for this.
I mean, we're behind, really, right? Like, this is so outdated. The earth is calling for us to behave very, very differently. We cannot be car-centric. We have to change our ways. It's not really an option. So this model is completely outdated, and we are way behind. So, I mean, the redesign is phenomenal, but it doesn't even take it as far as it could take it, right? To actually, I know some parts of the world are not having cars in their downtown, on some of their current, quote, streets, right? They're closing those off to vehicles of any kind, and they're only for humans using mobility devices or walking or bicycles even. So the redesign is the next phase, and if we want humans to survive, we have to get on board immediately, yesterday, decades ago. But we have to do everything we can now, right, to slow the carbon, stop the carbon, and it means changing our behaviors. And behavior change is really hard. I get that, but it's not an option.
First times I went downtown with my kids a long time ago on a bicycle, we were driving our bikes on the sidewalk and a police officer stopped us. No lie. Very polite, of course, but said we couldn't ride bikes on the sidewalks, which made sense, I guess, but it never occurred to me because where I used to live, we did ride bikes on the sidewalk. And so this is actually going to have bikes coming down Main Street, okay? And it's going to be legal. So we don't talk a lot about that dedicated, protected bike lane, but that's a big part of this design too. And that's a change that people may have to get used to. But I think it's going to be a positive change because we now realize that people like to bike. There's lots of benefits of biking. It's not like 30, 40 years ago. We now know that people want to get around on bikes. It's happening in many places across the world. But it won't happen unless you provide the infrastructure, unless you make it legal for people to bike through Main Street. And this is what we're going to get to. That's a huge benefit to me. And not only is it a practical thing, it's a signal, that we care about the safety of our kids coming through town. We care about people on bikes. We're making this space for bikes. So we have pedestrians, we have people on bikes and wheelchairs and all kinds of wheels, and we have the cars. But it's a more balanced approach. And, as planners have learned over time, this kind of balanced approach, it makes more sense and it makes for a better environment. Really, it's got something for everybody. So I see, especially the way the design has evolved, it's just nothing but a positive thing for Northampton. The sooner we started, the better, really. I'm really looking forward to it.
It will take some getting used to. Obviously, any change is hard. For some people, it might not come naturally about ways to look, but we need to adapt to a way where people can get around not using cars. Especially in downtown dense areas. And yes, it may be scary, but I believe that for the most part, bicyclists, there's a lot of fear about bicyclists mowing people down, but I believe for the most part, the bicyclists are very respectful and they understand that they are also in a dense area with a lot of people walking. So there are a lot of fears, but I believe it's not going to be as bad as some people warn. Everyone has to be careful, no matter what design we have, and this will help, having the clear delineations about this is where a bicycle should be, this is where a pedestrian should be. That's going to make for a much safer environment.
Yeah, I mean, coming from the perspective of somebody who I often bike downtown, my family often bikes downtown, we rarely drive, it can be a little bit difficult to navigate that situation. It's not impossible, it's not terrible, but it's definitely like, all right, how are we going to safely get there? Where are we going to park our bikes? As I said before, you can bike Main Street if you're willing to be on the road and navigate the chaos of it. But yeah, so I think it's going to create more space for cyclists to also have an option to get downtown safely and to go through town safely. I think it'll make walking easier. There'll be more space for both walking, and the dining, like space for it all. And there's still going to be plenty of space for cars. I think actually for cars it's going to be better because the chaos is actually pretty hard for cars too.
I'm just so much more likely to come into downtown if there's a protected bike lane. The downtown streets in Northampton are chaotic. It's like you hit the downtown intersections and it's really scary. At that point, like I said, I'll just get off of my bike and walk on the sidewalks because it's too dangerous. Nobody knows how many lanes there are. It's actually one lane in each direction, one travel lane, but people create 2 lanes, which, it's just, there's no guidance there. Nobody knows what to do. I always call it a demolition derby at the downtown Northampton because nobody knows what to do when they're driving. If I have to bike behind the angled parking, that's really scary for me because I know people often have blind spots and they just kind of start backing up so they can see the traffic, but a lot of times I'm right behind them and they just don't see me, so it's very scary. With Picture Main Street, what I'm excited about is that I can come right into town on the rail trail, which I do frequently, and I can keep biking to my destination on a protected bike lane. People on the streets in their cars will be in their own lane. I won't have to worry about them backing into me or, merging into me. It's just going to be a lot more likely that I'll want to come into town because it'll just feel so much safer.
I spend a lot of time with friends and other volunteers working to improve and expand the rail trail network here in Northampton, which we call the shared use path because it's used by bicyclists and pedestrians and joggers. There's 11 miles of the trail. It draws a lot of tourists to the area, but often the tourists and the riders stay on the trail network and it circles around the downtown city, but often people aren't familiar enough or feel confident enough to ride their bikes or to walk into the city. So the Picture Main Street is going to provide a much better, safer route to the trail network. These spurs that will enable people very comfortably to come right downtown, lock up their bikes, pull out their wallets, have a good time, and really enjoy Northampton for what it is. Currently, without the Picture Main Street redesign, we have people rolling around our city, but not stopping here as often as we would like them to.
I really appreciate the narrowing of the streets because the narrowing really makes drivers aware that they're in a place that is built for pedestrians. Because one of the problems we have right now is drivers come down, they have this big wide road, and if there's no one around, they're going to go through at 35 miles per hour, and that is not good for the people, the consumers of Northampton's Main Street. Consumers are the ones who are on the ground walking around, not the people who are driving through. And that's I think that's one of the biggest confusions about this project is that while this may be one of the main connectors of Route 9 and Route 10 and Route 5 as well, that it's not just a throughway for people to travel. It is a place of commerce.
There will be very little transition from the rail trail to the protected bike lanes. It will be just like a smooth transition. All of a sudden you are out on the street, but it has more of the rail trail feel still, and you can still get to your destination safely and comfortably on a bicycle. People like to ride on the trail with their kids, with their little kids, who are, you have a measure of safety on the rail trail that you just don't have once you hit the streets where you're sharing it with motor vehicles.
Pardon Our Progress. It's a partnership between the Northampton Chamber, the DNA, the Downtown Northampton Association, and the City of Northampton through the Mayor's Office. Together, the three, we're voluntarily working together on a mitigation plan for the coming construction. What that means is that we're looking at doing promotional activities starting now and through construction to minimize the impacts of the coming construction on downtown businesses. We know it can be hard, but that with the proper support, that businesses can do well during the construction. And that's what POP is about, is to keep all of those activities going and keep people coming downtown.
I have been acquainted with POP both because I know some people who are involved. I'm a part of the Downtown Northampton Association and the Chamber of Commerce, and POP has worked a lot with both of those organizations as well as with the city. I'm pretty excited about what they're doing. I do wish that they had started 2 years ago, but but I'm pretty excited about what they're doing. They are doing a lot of outreach to business owners, to residents, sort of trying to amplify the communication about what this process and what these improvements actually mean. So that kind of communication work is huge. There's going to be some promotion of downtown Northampton to the larger world, both during and after construction, and that's going to be really huge for helping the businesses make it through. And they're also being very careful about how the construction is done. So, they're not closing all of Main Street. They're not digging up, everything from building to building. POP is also going to be helpful with communications as far as detours, as far as what's closed, what's open, how to get around. So I know that they're hard at work on that, and that's huge. I think a lot of the complaints about what's coming on Main Street are just people don't have the imagination for it. They haven't seen other cityscapes go through this kind of transition. So a lot of what POP is doing and that I really endorse is just helping people actually picture Main Street and imagine what it's going to look like and imagine how it's going to function.
One important factor that's involved in a redesign of this magnitude of the downtown is the construction that's going to happen. All the extra vehicles in here, the orange cones, So we need to trust that the city and the construction engineers and specialists have thought through this and how to do it in a way that integrates our continued daily trips to stores and restaurants. We have a POP committee now, Pardon Our Progress, that was able to garner some funds from the state to work with businesses in order to really help them deal with some of the unforeseen circumstances that are going to happen during construction. But I'm totally confident that it's going to be as smooth as it can be, let me say. It's not going to be as bad as what the retailers went through during the COVID period. That took them totally by surprise. We have more time to plan for this kind of hiccup in business of downtown.
POP is essentially a volunteer committee where you have people who have influence on downtown coming together to partner up to get stuff done. And that what we're talking about doing is actually pretty complex. So to basically take all of that complexity on, we're broken up into action teams. We have a team that has to do with community engagement. That's the team that's been out tabling downtown. It's the team that's been attending various meetings, both with the Chamber and the DNA, to spread information about the project. Then we have a business engagement team. They are focused on what specifically we need to do to help the businesses downtown. So that committee is looking at data about what's going on downtown in terms of our economic activity, and also looking at how the promotional piece and what we need to do to support businesses, the technical assistance that they need. So there's advertising involved there, but there's also what does your business need to perform better now to keep our downtown vital and turn the construction into a bump in the road.
One of the things that I'm really looking forward to with Picture Main Street is that the changes that it's going to bring, physical changes that it's going to bring to greater downtown area is going to be of great benefit, not just to the businesses themselves, but to the people who will be flooding these streets. and coming to Northampton because of its great reputation and the fact that it's kept all this newness. It's going to look different, it's going to be different, is something that's made me be very supportive of Picture Main Street.
So in the design, we are really looking at widening the sidewalks, which in turn will shorten the length that someone has to navigate across the street. Also, having clarified the travel lanes for automobiles will be much better, because right now you could be in a crosswalk with cars coming at you from two directions and often two cars. One car will stop, the other car won't, and it's a real conflict there. The shortened crosswalks give somebody with mobility issues more time to cross the street and be seen. More and more we're seeing people with walkers, with electric wheelchairs, using our city sidewalks, and the shortened crosswalks will certainly give them an advantage now in terms of safety.
We know that not driving, that taking alternative transportation reduces our emissions. So we know that. And we know that a lot of the population of Northampton actually lives within walking and biking distance of Northampton, of downtown. How are you going to get people out of cars and walking and biking so you can reduce emissions? And we know that one of the reasons that people don't do it, particularly women and children, or people with children, but people in general, they don't choose to do it because it doesn't feel comfortable. It doesn't feel safe. That's why they don't choose to do it. So this is just one of those big investments that we can make, not just, but it is one of those big investments that we can make to say, yes, like it can be safe for everybody. We're promoting your ability to get around. You can walk downtown on sidewalks, and once you get here, you can cross, Main Street more safely. You don't have to cross. I don't remember off the top of my head what the present crossing distance is across Main Street, but you'll have to only navigate a much shorter stretch of vehicle interactions to get from one side to the other. It's going to be safer, and that promotes people saying like, hey, you know what? I am going to walk downtown. I am going to bike downtown. There's a place for me to go safely to get there. And so, get more people out of their cars and onto their bikes and their feet, I think is it's not just downtown. There's other things the city needs to do, but it's a huge piece of it to have somewhere friendly to go for cyclists and pedestrians.
I feel excited about it because I feel like it's going to, it'll be pleasant and wonderful for me and my family, but also I really do think that it's just going to create this positive feedback cycle for Northampton where people are going to want to come here. It's going to revitalize Northampton in a way that to me feels really hopeful.
So it's interesting that they use the concept of Picture Main Street, because it really is. We're asking my neighbors, the residents in Northampton, to picture what would be your ideal Main Street here that you live in or that your family would come visit. So that, to me, that means a place where I'm comfortable meeting with my friends, I'm comfortable walking, riding, driving, riding a bike, escorting my mother to a movie or to a music show. It's also, Northampton is seen as the regional center for the couple of counties in Western Mass. So if there is a major event, some kind of rally, people focus on Northampton. It's a place to come. It's a place to not only be seen, but to be heard by other people. But the redesign of Main Street will allow us to have that expansive kind of accessible location to do all of those things and more in a very safe way.
It's a great benefit to all of us to reduce the width of the street, because again, you're not prioritizing cars, you're taking back some of that space for the public. And wider sidewalks, we've carved out other spaces in front of City Hall, in front of First Churches, where things can happen. So when a sidewalk goes from a few feet to 10 or 12 feet, you can do a lot more things. You can put the tables out. You can have little art shows. You can do a lot of things that you just can't do in a narrow sidewalk. With the sidewalks, it sounds maybe trite, but it's really important to how people use space. So I think with trees, with all kinds of amenities that this wider, sidewalk is going to allow, that'll drastically change, the way it's used and the vitality on Main Street. Just that pedestrian realm again, is just important, and it goes for all seasons too. So we don't have that space right now. We have it maybe in a few places, but this is going to be a consistently wide area for pedestrians to use.
I love our city. It's been great to me for 40 years, but this is really about the next generation of people coming to the city. It's really about the young people who are moving in, the people who are in schools now, the young families. Our commerce is changing, our retail stores, our lifestyles are somewhat changing, and people really want to get out, get away from their, let me say, screens, and enjoy the common space which Main Street will allow them to meet with their friends, to socialize, to go to shows, to go out to eat, to window shop or shop in many of our specialty stores. So it's really about the next generations. It's not so much about me or about the people of my generation, but it's for the future.